Wonderful brothers and sisters, there are a lot of things that are actually happening, and both to members and non-members of the church, especially on matters to do with the temple. A lot of people still don't actually get, so to speak, what exactly the temple is all about, and at times it is understandable though. It is understandable though, especially for us who are actually in Kenya and the surroundings. The temple is still very new. People are so inquisitive. They are really looking for ways on how they can really, understand the things that are being done in the temple and how we can relate that into our lives relative to what the gospel of Jesus Christ is all about. And there are so many questions that people have been asking themselves. And I came across this discussion, which I feel it is actually edifying. And for anyone who will have time to go through this discussion, he will be actually edified, because the things that are being discussed here, they're just awesome. Awesome. Very, very awesome. And without further ado, let me just hook you up so that you can actually listen to what these two gentlemen are actually discussing here, so that we can be edified in understanding some of the principles that are connected to the temple. Please welcome.
Thing is that, people say this a lot. I've never encountered anything like this before. Like my week by week experience at church is nothing like what we do in the temple, all the symbolism, the ritual, the fact that it is so ritualized compared to what we do week by week at church, right? There's the basic ritual of the sacrament with the prayer, and when we take the bread and water, that's a ritual action, but it doesn't feel that distinctive because it's just eating and drinking. We do those things every day anyway, right? And so we go to the temple and people have this sense that this is so different from something that they're used to in other contexts. And we're going to challenge that today, okay, and show, and this is something we've talked about before a little bit, but talk about the things that are in the temple often that are sort of intimidating. They're in the scriptures too. They're in the Book of Mormon, right? And there are other actions, right? So like the actions that we do in dedicating a temple, which are things that are talked about more publicly, right, than the primary ritual of the endowment itself. The Hosanna shout and, the waving of the handkerchief with the Hosanna shout, right? Those things also, they seem really distinctive. They seem like they're not maybe familiar from the scriptures, or they seem like they're very distinctively Latter-day Saint or quote unquote Mormon, like this is stuff other people do, right? And yet actually that's wrong. These things that we may find odd, they're actually all directly focused on Jesus Christ in the scriptures, in the Bible, in the Book of Mormon. That's where they're coming from, right? They're coming from the scriptures about Christ. Absolutely. Right? They're coming from scriptures about Jesus Christ, and even the temple garment, right? Which is something else. This is something that's seen as very distinctive. Obviously, it is distinctive of Latter-day Saints, right? So non-Latter-day Saints will think about quote unquote Mormon underwear or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And our own thinking on it as a Latter-day Saint culture has tended to become focused on questions of modesty, right? As if that were like the purpose of the garment was to lay out lines of modesty. It's not. It wasn't. That was not the purpose at all when the garment was instituted. It's not the purpose now. So getting back to more, if that's not what the garment's about, what does it represent? Right? And we'll get to that.
Okay. So wow, I think that to me, it's such a topic that I think when people, and I think that you're right, when people talk about members of the church in garments, temples, it is kind of this topic that feels like, what are they doing? And you're telling me that there actually is a foundational connection from in the actual scriptures the familiar
scriptures about Jesus Christ. Yes.
So what would you say? So let's get into it then. What would you say for you? Let's go back to the history, right? The dedicatory prayer is in section 109 and in 110, or even just the history in general.
Dedication of the Kirtland Temple.
Yeah, the dedication of
the first temple of the Restoration.
So this is the first temple in our dispensation.
Yes.
And so I remember you told me once, you said, if you want to know the meaning of a certain thing, you need to go back to the origin of that thing.
Yeah.
So take us back there. Take us back to Kirtland Temple dedication.
Yeah. So Kirtland Temple, the building of temples is, obviously it's in the Bible, right? But it is kind of prefigured, if you will, in the Book of Mormon. The central question that we're going to be answering today is, what does the dedication of the Kirtland Temple, the first temple of the Restoration, tell us about what the temple experience has to do with my relationship with Jesus Christ?
Yeah.
That's the main question we want to get at today. We're also, as part of that, we're going to look a little bit at some things in the New Testament, and we're going to throw in a little bit from the Book of Mormon about Jesus Christ, all of which is just to illuminate what does our experience of the temple, from the time a temple is dedicated, through going through our endowments in the temple, to the garment that we wear from our temple experience. What does all that have to do, not just historically, with Jesus Christ? What does that have to do with my personal relationship with Jesus Christ right now?
This is going to be good. This is my favorite thing to do. You have no idea how anytime I talk to you, I'm like, you blow my mind every time I talk to you. Well, so let's take us back to Kirtland, right? This is the first temple of this dispensation.
Yes.
Which is like unheard of. I think that we don't even realize and grasp the meaning of this, right? Mm-hmm. Help us understand. Take us back. What's the year? 1836?
That's when it's dedicated. Yeah.
They've sacrificed. They've put all of this effort into building this temple, and now it's finally here. Help us take us back to that time.
Yeah. So the saints from the start, they're anticipating building a temple. So back right after the Book of Mormon, when the Book of Mormon's being translated, they're aware that there's going to be a temple. It's mentioned in 3rd Nephi that they'll build a new Jerusalem. And in 3rd Nephi and Ether, it talks about there will be a sanctuary of the Lord in the New Jerusalem, a temple. Okay. And there are things in the Book of Mormon, even in the Book of Ether in particular, that foreshadow things that will occur in the temple that we'll talk about.
Okay.
Right? And
he just says it so, I love how you say it so nonchalant. Like, okay. Yeah.
And I think it's possibly the first article published about the Book of Mormon in the newspaper before it appeared in print. Before the Book of Mormon appeared in print in 1830, or it might be like the second article, I don't know, very early on in 1829, there was an article that mentioned the idea that the believers in the Book of Mormon, the Latter-day Saints, were going to be building a temple. So from the start, it was anticipated that the saints would build a temple. And in 1831, Joseph Smith received revelation saying to build a temple in Kirtland, right? And they were also anticipating building one in the city of Zion, the New Jerusalem, right?
Get kicked out.
In Jackson County, Missouri. And they sacrificed tremendously to build the Kirtland Temple, right? And there are all kinds of stories that other people would actually mostly be able to give you more detail on, of the sacrifices made, right? How the people... They took their china dishes and they smashed them in order to provide like a sort of glittery coating for the temple so that it would catch the sunlight, something that unfortunately isn't there now still, right? All that fell off over time. But they made tremendous sacrifices to build this temple, and they actually didn't at the time call it the temple. They called it the house of the Lord, and that's actually what Joseph Smith in his contemporaneous records of the time, you read, he doesn't refer to it as the temple, he refers to it as the house of the Lord.
Always.
Oh, yeah. Well, consistently. I don't know if it's every single time, but yeah, consistently. And it says on it, the house of the Lord. And this is what it is. It's designed to be a house for Jesus Christ.
So what significance do you feel like that? Because right now, people are like, oh, I'm going to go to the temple. I got a temple appointment. Mm-hmm. What significance do you think that means? 'Cause I feel like you're telling me that for a reason.
I mean, it would be kind of like, I don't know, if going to the temple, I have an appointment at the temple, that can seem like just sort of a religious function.
Yeah.
But what if it was like, I'm going to Christ's house? Oh, wow, okay. I'm actually going to the Lord's house. That would be a remarkable thing, to go to Jesus Christ's house, right?
Wow. His presence.
Yeah. And part of what they do in the dedicatory sessions of the Kirtland Temple is they are welcoming Christ to his house. That's part of what they are trying to do, very, very deliberately thinking about that. Right. And
so that's significant, right?
That,
just this alone right now, that what you're saying, the house of the Lord, that intention of Joseph Smith to call it that is so important. Yeah. Even from that perspective of going to the house of the Lord, that shift alone is already important, I believe. Yeah.
And so we're familiar with the fact they dedicate the temple, right? And the main services for dedication are on March 27th. It's a Sunday, March 27th, 1836. And they have a dedicatory prayer, which we'll get into more later, right? Sure. Where it was given, Joseph Smith said the prayer was given to him by revelation. And so it's actually been canonized. It's in our scriptures as section 109 of the Doctrine and Covenants that we'll be discussing in our Come Follow Me lessons coming up. And so that he had the dedicatory prayer and other ceremonies where they did, basically it was like the first part of the endowment that they were doing, the initiatories. Yeah. They were doing like washings and anointings in the temple, right? They did the Hosanna shout, right? And they experienced an outpouring of the Spirit at that time, right? Now, a week later, exactly 1 week later, on Sunday, April 3rd, 1836, Christ appeared in the Kirtland Temple. The risen Lord appeared to Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery behind the veil of the temple. And with him afterward appeared Moses, Elias, and Elijah, proclaiming their missions and bringing keys, delivering those keys to Joseph and Oliver for this dispensation. And, something that I never get tired of saying, and that your listeners have heard me say before, and that they'll hear me say again in the future, is much of history is just getting the events in the right order. Okay? When we know the chronology of the events, then we can see the relationships between the events, and it's like, oh, okay. Then the events make sense. They make a kind of sense to us that they could not have made without that chronology.
Wow. Okay.
We're going to dive into the
I don't know if I'm ready for this, man. I'm serious. Okay. So just to clarify, the order matters and it unlocks everything.
The order matters and it unlocks everything, right? And so let's go to Sunday. It's time travel to Sunday, March 27th, 1836. Okay. Well, actually, we'll time travel a week later, and then we'll go back a week in time to March 27th. So April.
So you realize that this is actually one of the greatest discussion for you to understand the impact and the significance of what temples are. It's a very powerful, a very edifying discussion. And this one actually has really helped me to understand what exactly our temples are and why we have those dedicatory prayers, and the significance that when you look at the temple, that is actually the house of the Lord. Oh, that is the house of the Lord. Because at times when you speak of a temple, people may think of something else, like something that is just too religious and all that. But when you think of it as the house where Christ comes and meets his people, then that one changes everything. Changes everything. And that's why at times it's written as the house of the Lord, because that is exactly what it is. It is the house of the Lord. I kind of like this discussion, and I will really encourage you, if you have time also, you can also go and listen to this discussion. It's very edifying if you really want to understand what temples are. Otherwise, thank you very much. God bless you. Looking forward to see you again next time. Thank you.